Hi friends, welcome back to Faith and Arrow Homestead. My name is Jaylee and it is the middle of July. It's actually just a couple days after my birthday and we are out here in the garden. We're going to do a quick tour and quite a bit of harvesting. I've needed to come out here and do this harvesting for a couple of weeks now. Honestly, some of these things literally could have been harvested like a week or two ago, but I was getting ready for my party and just overall busy. I'm working 6 days a week right now and just haven't gotten around to it. So some of this stuff is definitely going to be like overdue to be harvested, and that's fine. We just do the best we can, right? So we're gonna do that today. I'm gonna give you a quick tour, and then in a separate video we will do some canning projects together. It's about 6:30 in the evening. It is so hot today, miserably hot today. And I'm very sweaty, so I'm probably not gonna dilly-dally and do a whole lot of for funsies chatting, but I am gonna share several things with you and I'm really excited. The very first thing that we're going to start with, and the thing that I really need to do, is peppers. So we have several different types of peppers going back here. Right here we have jalapenos, and some of these will certainly be ready for harvesting. I like to pick them when they're green. If you leave them, they do turn red. And then beside that, we have several bell pepper plants. Not all of them are ready. Let's see, you can see here we've got a little baby, but some of them certainly are ready for harvesting. You can see where little teeth tried to take a nibble. And then this plant here was actually mislabeled. This looks to be some sort of banana pepper, and that is not what I planted here. It was a bell pepper that I planted from the same packet of seeds that other bell pepper that I just harvested came from. So that was a whoopsie. My dad took a bite of one of these while he was over the other day and said it was quite hot. So, cool. This is a great example of why you really should not dilly-dally to get out and harvest. That baby got eaten, but the one right next to it is great, perfect. So you know what? You have to share with nature, but I have my garden completely surrounded with netting and they're still somehow getting in here and doing this, but not nearly as bad as last year, so I'll take it. So that was all in the same bed. We have peppers in this bed too. We'll get to that in just a second. But in the front here, I have cucumbers, and you can see that they are almost done. I'm actually surprised they've made it this long. But I also dilly-dallied picking them. This is a jade cucumber that I got from Baker Creek. And I mean, you can see that this thing is massive. And they are supposed to be kind of a longer, skinnier cucumber. This one is obviously very big. I should have picked this a week ago. But we have also had pests with that as well. So, you know, like I said, you win some, you lose some, and we have to share a little bit. It does look like we ended up with 3 that is salvageable. So the other ones I'll just go give to the chickens. Our basket is already filling up, which is fun. And now we're going to move over to the other bed. And we have more. We have 3 rows of peppers here. So we've got the peppers in the back. Those are garden salsa peppers. I did not plant those from seed. I bought those from a local nursery. They are my absolute favorite pepper of all the peppers because they're very spicy, but they also have a great flavor, which is what I look for in a pepper. There's a lot of those, so we'll have to go in there and clean those up. And then in the middle row here, that's another bell pepper. And then in the very front here, those are a snacking pepper. So they are little, and if you've never grown a snacking pepper, they grow upside down. You see that? So that is a cutie little snacking pepper. It's like a little baby bell pepper. And I have a few of those plants along the front here. So we'll go through and harvest those too. This is one of the other reasons it's my favorite, because it is just so very prolific. This is my first harvest of these off of 3 plants. They're all beautiful, like just long and shiny and so pretty. They look like you'd find them in a supermarket, but they were grown in my backyard totally organically, and they are just so yummy. Such a yummy pepper. Wow, just wow. I knew that this was going to be exciting, and I was right. So many peppers. I purposely went really heavy on the peppers this year because I have a lot of things that I want to can that include peppers in them, and last year I kept finding that I had to adjust the recipes because I wouldn't have enough peppers, and I didn't want to have that problem this year. I want to have all the peppers. So I've planted obviously 2 full beds of them, whereas last year I just planted 1 bed. And so I am pepper rich this year, and I'll take it. What a blessing. It's so exciting. I think the other thing that makes me excited is knowing that bell peppers are on the Dirty Dozen list of very heavily sprayed nasty vegetables from the grocery store. And look, I mean, it's just gorgeous. I grew this, and this particular one I grew from seed. So exciting. All right, let's keep moving through the garden here. So this is the pepper bed that we just harvested out of, and we come around the back here to get to the tomatoes. Now I want to point out to you one thing. I did a little bit of crop rotation this year. So these are my pepper beds, but last year they were my tomato beds. So when I pivot a little bit, this used to be this bed here and this one over here. Those were my pepper beds and my cucumber zucchini beds, and I just did it totally different this year. So these beds back here are now my tomato beds. You can see the trellis that I have back there. We put that up together in a different video. I can link that down in the description. So these are now my tomato beds. I'm actually really struggling with that this year. The peppers are doing beautifully. They love their new home. The tomatoes do not. They are very diseased this year. They have really struggled being in these back 2 beds. So I'm not sure if there was some sort of bacteria or something in that soil. I don't know exactly what happened for them to struggle so badly, but I'll give you a couple close-ups so you can see what I mean. Luckily, I'm very fortunate that there are still plenty of tomatoes. They've not turned yet, as you can see, but they are loaded down with green tomatoes. And so I am very lucky about that. But here we go. We're gonna get into some serious disease right here. Look at that. That is just nasty. Not good. And as you can see, I've pruned. I mean, I really did a great job keeping up on the pruning this year. Oh, those are starting to turn down there. Nice. Oh wow, that's covered in flowers. Awesome. But yeah, look at the stems here. Look at how covered those are with disease. Not good. Yeah, and that travels all the way up. I mean, you can even see a little bit of those spots all the way up here on the trellis. Not great, but you know what? I definitely am still going to get a harvest off of these. I'll still have lots of tomatoes, it's looking like, from this first round, and there's more flowers coming. And that's great. So, of course, you know, I'm trying to do some canning here, and that's why I planted all those peppers. So it's amusing to me that I have all the peppers that I need this year, but perhaps not all of the tomatoes that I need this year. But you know what? We're very lucky to live in a time currently, as it stands right now, where I can go to the farmer's market and purchase somebody else's organically grown tomatoes, and I'll have to pay for that, obviously, but I still have access to other tomatoes if this crop that I've planted here this year isn't enough for me to accomplish all of my canning needs. So I'm gonna take what I can get, and next year I'm gonna plant the tomatoes somewhere else. I did all the same stuff, fertilized this mostly the same, pruned and kept up with suckers and everything really well. So I really genuinely don't know where that came from, why they're so diseased, but you know, you live and you learn. In the front here of these tomato beds, I have red onions, and they're doing okay. They're doing the thing. This is my herb bed, and it's doing really well. My basil, grew that from seed. It's looking great. I've got some dill. I find the dill to be so whimsical. Look at that. Look how whimsical that is. I think it's just so pretty. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. I just think it is so pretty, so whimsical. And I've harvested those heads so many times and have dehydrated them, and they just keep coming. So cool. And then here, this is something called Korean hyssop, this purpley stuff. And I originally planted it last year for tea. It is a perennial, evidently, because it came back this year. And it is just so, not only is it beautiful and it smells good, but the bees and the pollinators love it. During the morning and the early afternoon, this is buzzing. It's covered with bees, and I love that. That's fine with me. So if it's serving no other purpose in this garden other than pollinators, and the stems on this are so long, they're lovely in a vase, and they smell good. I love that. Underneath the hyssop and next to the basil, I have oregano, but it is like, I've neglected it. It has flowered out so badly. I really need to get in here and harvest, and there's just so much of it. I mean, it's taking up this entire corner of this bed here. So I really need to get out here and do something with that. These are the tomatoes. Moving into the next bed, we've got a zucchini plant in each corner. The zucchini plants did so poorly this year. I got 3 zucchinis off of all 4 plants combined. That really did not work out for me this year. But you know, that's okay. I always remind myself that with backyard, just gardening, just me being an average Joe, it's not everything is always gonna do really well, and I just have to take it as it comes. And I still have shredded zucchini in the freezer from last year's bumper crop of zucchini, so that's okay. I'm okay with the fact that it didn't do really well. I'd rather have a tremendous pepper harvest and a sad zucchini harvest than the other way around. So it's okay. I planted a zucchini plant in each of the 4 corners, and the rest of this bed is flowers, and I did that on purpose. I wanted something pretty. So I have cosmos, I have zinnias, I have echinacea, I have asters. It's just really beautiful. Again, the pollinators love it, and it's just so pretty to look at. All right, so we were just looking at the flower bed here. Moving next to that, we have the thing that I'm the most excited to show you in this tour, and that is my cabbage bed. Now I want you, before we talk about the cabbage, there's something I want you to notice that I did. I planted lettuce and cabbage together at the same time. The lettuce is long gone, it's all gone to seed, it's been fed to the chickens, it's out of here. At the same time, I also planted straw flower and calendula because those grow to be taller. And so by the time the cabbages got big enough to shade out anything that was low to the ground, those flowers had grown tall enough to still be able to do their thing and be in the same bed as the cabbage. So I want to show you. Here I have straw flower, and they're very tall. I mean, it's going to be hard to show you, but I mean, they are as tall as I am. These straw flowers, they're several feet tall. By the way, I love the sound. I love straw flower. And the calendula, I haven't done anything with calendula yet. I know you can make like lotions and salves and stuff. I have not done that yet. The pollinators like it, and I feed the spent heads to the chickens. So that works out. But I want to show you, you see how well these are doing. Look at how they are planted in between the cabbages. I mean, there's very little room. You can hardly see any dirt. This is planted so intensely. But with the cabbages, the straw flowers and the calendula were able to grow up between them. I did that strategically. This is my 3rd year in this garden, if you're new to this channel, and it was really fun for me to have an idea, a plan, and it actually execute the way that I envisioned. I was like, what do you know? The thing that I'm the most excited to show you in this tour is my cabbage. Look! I have an actual, real, head of cabbage. I literally cannot even believe it. I have planted cabbages all 3 years that I've been gardening on this property, and I've never had one make it to harvest. They get destroyed or just they bolt because of the heat, and honestly, this is a God cabbage. It is by the grace of God that I have this cabbage because it is 90 degrees out here today. I am melting, and none of these cabbages have bolted yet because in between all of these really hot days, the temperature will drop and we'll have like a 2 or 3 day period where it's in like the low 70s, and we'll get a bunch of rain. So I think because of that temperature fluctuation, it's been cool enough, long enough that the cabbages are able to like continue doing their thing, and the evening temperatures have been getting down low enough. So it is really truly by the grace of God. Now, next year, because I am seeing how much excitement this is bringing me having these cabbages, and so I want to do this again next year. I want to have cabbages, or even in the fall. I'm gonna have to buy some sort of cover for pests because I've had to come out here every day, sometimes more than once a day, and spray these cabbages off with the hose because they get covered in what I'm assuming must be cabbage moth caterpillar eggs. Those little green worms, I'm pretty sure they turn into cabbage moths. They're covered in those eggs, and so I come out here and spray them off with the hose, and I think that's the only reason that I've gotten away with it for so long. But it would be a lot better and more efficient maybe if I covered them with like some sort of shade cloth to both keep the temperature down and to also protect them from bugs. So I'll have to get some of that and do that in the future because I won't be able to plant the flowers in between if I did that. But I would be able to have a really good cabbage harvest because I think only 3 of these are going to be worth anything when I harvest them, because it has been hot and because there has been a lot of pest pressure on them. So it is what it is. I'm not going to harvest those right now because I actually want to I have a whole separate video planned for these cabbages. So we'll do that from start to end in that next video, which I'll probably film in the morning. I'm running out of steam tonight. So that's actually everything that I wanted to harvest today. I don't have anything else to harvest. It was mostly those peppers. I just knew that they were getting out of control and I was seeing that they were being eaten. So I was like, yikes, I really have to get out here and harvest those. But I am going to take you around quickly and just show you the rest of the garden so you can see what's going on. For the very first time, I'm actually going to get a couple of elderberries. I have these elderberry bushes in pots. There's one here and one over here. And personally, I don't think I fertilize them well enough. As you can see, the berries always fall off. And I know they're not getting eaten. They fall off. But for the very first time, I'm actually going to get a couple, and that's really exciting. When we move to whatever property we end up on, I will be planting these in the ground and managing them as elderberry bushes are meant to be managed so that I can have a real harvest. But they're hanging in there. They're very tall, almost about 4 feet tall, I'd say. And they're hanging in there. So I just need them to stay alive so that they can come with us to the next property. My roses, these roses were absolutely covered 2 weeks ago, and now there's not anything on them, but that's okay. They put on quite the show in June, so that was exciting. And then my flowers that I've got in my grow bags are looking pretty. My chamomile is mostly spent, but I do need to come out here very soon, tomorrow morning or the next, and harvest what's on there. Just one last go, but it's pretty much done. And this is one last kale plant that I actually purposely left because I came out here the other day and it was covered in those little green caterpillars that I'm assuming are cabbage moth caterpillars. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna leave this plant because there were 4 of them in here. The other 3 I've already fed to the chickens, but I decided to leave this one because I thought this is kind of like a decoy, like a trap. If I can get the cabbage caterpillars or whatever to be on this kale plant that I don't care about instead of my cabbages, then I'm gonna keep it and let it do that. And it seemed to work. I mean, this thing, I came out and it had a bunch of them on there, and there weren't any on my cabbages. So I was like, okay, you can stay. You're doing a job. I appreciate it. And then next to that, we have my onions, and they're coming along nicely. Very excited about that. Not ready to be harvested yet, but they're doing it. Over here next to the house, I have a couple of sunflowers. Oh, look at that. All the petals are gone off of that one. I wonder if a bird did that. This one still has its petals though. These are probably 14 feet tall. I mean, they are so tall. It's crazy. And my lilies are blooming. Lilies are my absolute favorite flower. You can see here that I have some sugar snap peas that are still on the trellis that need to come off. They're pretty good and dead, but that's cool because I left several of these on here, and I will collect these seeds and plant them next year, so that'll be really good. This is the trellis that I used for my cherry tomatoes, and they are doing really well. Look at how high up the trellis they ended up going. Let me give you a different angle so you can see well. I mean, this is a 16-foot trellis that we kind of, you know, bent. So it's quite tall, and these tomatoes are growing really high up it, which I love. I'm really excited about that. So I have cherry tomatoes on both sides of this trellis, but on this side I have the sun sugar variety, and on the other side I have the black cherry variety, and we have finally been getting some of the sun sugars ripe. Let me show you. This is a seed that was sent to me by a viewer. His name is Gary, and I was talking about my cherry tomato situation last year, and he sent me these to try. They're amazing. So sweet, really, really good. A delight to have in the garden. I can't wait for these to all start turning because I'm going to be snacking my face off out here eating these. So delicious. They are starting to turn. The black cherries are nowhere near turning. Here are the black cherries, and I mean, you can see that they are covered. We are going to have so many of them when they do finally start to turn, but they're nowhere near it. They're still very green. But that's okay. I don't mind. They can do their thing. The other thing that is doing really well that I've actually been able to come and start eating are ground cherries. If you're not familiar with ground cherries, they grow in this like husk, and they're called ground cherries because you want to wait for them to fall to the ground, but I know them well enough now to know what they look like when they're ripe, and you want them to be this like goldeny color. This one's actually even a little underripe. It still has a touch of green, but the longer, they're delicious no matter what, anytime, but the longer you leave them, the sweeter they get. I love them. I think they're delicious. Me having a garden in my backyard, one of the things that I'm looking for is the ability to snack. I want to go outside and just be able to like snack on things. That's why I did the snacking peppers this year. I had sugar snap peas and cherry tomatoes and ground cherries, raspberries, blackberries. I want to be able to just go outside and pop things in my mouth. And so the ground cherries accomplish that, but I'm very careful. I put them in strategic areas in the garden because they can really take over. Those plants can get really, really big. So I've got one on each end of these beds in front of the fireplace, and that was a really good place for them. Something else that I want to show you while I'm just happen to be sitting right here, I did a potato experiment. I had some potatoes from the grocery store, organic, that had started to, they were bad. They were like too soft and they had major eyes. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to plant these and see what happens. So I had these pots just kicking around, and this is not a very big pot. So this is not going to have very many potatoes in it. But as you can see, it worked. These are looking really nice and healthy. I have another pot identical over there with the same, I did the same thing. I planted 2 eyes in both pots. And so 4 eyes all together, and we're just gonna see what happens. And I think I'm supposed to wait until the foliage starts to die, I'm pretty sure, and that's when they're ready. I've never grown a potato in my life. It was just an experiment, just for fun. It wasn't something I had planned on doing. Next year, we are for sure planting potatoes. I want to, this was the first year that I was very serious about gardening for food production. This is my 3rd year with this garden. The first 2 years was really just me learning, figuring out how to garden, and this was the first year that I was like, I had a plan, I had a vision, I knew what I wanted to be able to make like final product wise, and that's what I went for, and that's why I have so many peppers and so many tomatoes and so many onions, etc., etc. Next year I want to do potatoes, and so we will be giving that a shot, and I'm excited that I'm getting to do a little trial run with that in the pots. Okay, next thing, I have 2 heads of, I guess, of garlic to harvest, and both of these, there's one in this bed and one on the other side. Both of them were accidents. I did not get around to planting garlic last fall. I will certainly be doing that. Last year I had quit my hospital job and was pursuing YouTube full-time, and I did not have the money to buy the bulbs of garlic to plant so that I would have a harvest this year, but I had the year before. And so when I harvested that garlic last summer, I missed a couple of heads, obviously, because I have these, and I did not plant these. Well, I did, obviously, but not this last fall. So they were an accident. And what happens when that happens is that I'm going to have several heads of garlic that are going to be small, because what happened was each bulb of garlic and the one head of garlic that was in the garden that I didn't harvest turned into its own head of garlic. And so when I pull this up, I'm really interested to see what it's going to look like. And I may end up having to get a little, oh, I have one. I'm probably going to have to loosen up around it because I think this is probably going to be really big. Okay, I stand corrected. Now, granted, the heads of garlic that I ended up with the year that I planted these on purpose were larger than this, but this is actually not a bad size. That's actually still a really decent head of garlic. This is just one, and there's multiple here because, like I said, each bulb from the original head that I left in the garden created its own head of garlic. So here's one. Let's see how many we have. That one's big. Let's go over to the other side and check that one out. These ones are definitely more like what I was thinking the other ones were going to look like. These are little babies. But you know what? Not for nothing. I ended up with 10 heads of garlic, even if some of them are small. And that is actually amazing. Are you kidding me? Guys, God provided. I did not have the funds to do this myself, and without spending any money on it this year, I ended up with 10 heads of garlic. That is incredible, and that's why I don't worry about the garden. It will provide. How about we give these cucumbers to the chickens, which, by the way, I didn't film it, but they are back to producing really well. Here, when it started to get really hot, I think they had to adjust to the heat because they were not laying well. I was getting I had a few days where I wouldn't get a single egg, and then I would get like 2 or 3 eggs, and I have 9 chickens. Today I got 7 eggs, so finally I'm back to getting a good amount again. Okay guys, what do you think? My very first harvest of 2024. My very first harvest. Personally, I'm thinking that this is really, really good. I love gardening so much, you guys. I'm over the moon about this garlic. What a gift. What a gift from our Heavenly Father that I ended up with garlic when I didn't think I'd have any, when I couldn't afford it, and I ended up with 10 heads. I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to do with all of this in a separate video, as well as my cabbage. That'll be a separate video because I don't have it in me today. I'm too tired. It's hot and I want to go relax. My birthday party was yesterday. I'm tired. I want to go sit down on the couch and veg out and watch TV, but I needed to get out here because I knew the pests were getting after this. I'd already lost that one bell pepper and one before that, and I intentionally planted a lot of peppers, and so I want them. I don't want to let the pests get them. I want them. And so I'll show you what we're going to be doing with those. in another video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this July garden tour and harvest, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Have faith and keep moving forward. Bye.